Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. If you've never tried it before, imposing taxes is an excellent way to collect money. You simply state that other people must pay you on or before the deadline, and ta-da, money lands in your lap. Of course, in order for this to work, you must be able to force the people who don't actually want to give you their money. And this is why taxes are usually imposed by the state, because they have the exclusive power to put you in jail if you don't pay your taxes. Well, in Canada, we are all accustomed to paying taxes, at least those of us who earn income and are not in jail for not paying taxes. And since we are all accustomed to paying taxes, how nice would it be if the all-powerful state gave us a tax break? That's a nice way of saying that you don't have to give us all your money, just some, when we feel like it. I mean, that would be so nice that I reckon that the party that offered the tax break may actually get a few extra votes here and there. Not that that would be the reason for offering the tax break, but maybe one of the side benefits of their pure benevolence and generosity. In any case, today we get into a bunch of stuff, including a tax break for those of you who are wealthy, rich, high-income earners. So you're going to want to keep an ear open for that. We also talk unemployment, separatism, economic turbulence, and why everyone in Canada looks like chickens walking around with their elbows in the air. To get in touch with the show, visit twostewards.ca. Remember, this show is not financial advice, but is valuable for listening amusement purposes. And now, let's see if we qualify for a tax break. Mark's coming at us from his brand new computer.
No, I'm not. I'm coming from a different computer, but I still have the old one. I was just telling Brent before the show because we're recording remotely, and I'm in my office. He's in his office, and I was having some internet connectivity issues. So I switched computers, and so the story was I've been having, like, my old computer's getting slow, laptop, so I'm like, all right, let me buy a new one. Ordered one off Amazon. It was a pretty good deal. Thought, okay. And so when it arrived, I opened up the box, and what did I get? A toilet seat.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, that was, so it's about the same weight as a new laptop, right?
So and, you opened it all excited?
The box was the same size. Well, yeah, like, no, and that's what it was on the order, right? Your new computer has arrived. Nope. So,
hey, at least it's got the open and close feature. And...
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I opened it and there was no keyboard.
Yeah.
This would be a federal government laptop.
On that note.
So I had to call Amazon, tried to explain to them what it was, and that took a little while till they finally understood. Okay. And then they're like, oh yeah, we've had complaints about this seller, other complaints. So they did a refund. But
this this wasn't April 1st or something you got the shipment?
No, it wasn't.
Oh boy.
Yeah, just a scam. But then so I got the label, return label, and it's for a laptop. So I had to call them back going like, no, I can't. It's not. I'm not sending you a laptop back. I'm sending you a toilet seat. Okay, like, please make notes all over this so you don't think I'm trying to scam you guys and I get banned from Amazon. But anyways, eventually I got the refund. Yeah.
Speaking of scams, let's get into the current events of the day.
Oh, like which one? The election, government policy?
Yeah, probably all of the above. I don't know.
Speaking of toilet seats, so our predictions, Brent.
Yeah, how many seats? I predicted.
I'm not gonna
liberal minority.
I'm not gonna burn you. No, I think I predicted a liberal minority.
No. Everyone will have to go back an episode or two ago.
One of us said conservative minority.
That was you.
And one said liberal minority. I think
you
said liberal.
Said confidently conservative minority, and I said
I don't think that's what
I will have to be devil's advocate. So.
Okay, we'll need fact checker.
Yeah, Gideon, fact checker. All right.
Okay, we'll get back to that. Anyways, we ended up with a liberal minority, and you know what? I think it maybe could have gone either way, but timing, right? Timing was everything. I think we talked about this before too, when Trudeau was just like dead in the polls, And, everybody's clamoring for an election. And we kind of said, like, well, there's no incentive for him to call an election. In politics, like, just wait.
Yeah.
If if things are terrible, just wait, because it could change. And, wow, did things change.
Yeah,
but
things change
conversely,
in this world fast, too.
Yeah, crazy. But I think, if they had waited another 6 months, could be a different story, right? When the economy is like really in the in the Amazon toilet seat, and maybe people were a little bit sick of a liberal government again. It could have been a different story. So we will see. It was perfect timing for the Liberals, anyways.
Yeah.
I think. And
elbows up, is that what they said?
Elbows up. You know what I wanted to? I'm just not talented, and I don't have enough time. But I wanted to do a graphic of the three monkeys covering their one's covering his eyes, one's covering his ears, and one's covering his mouth.
Okay, yeah.
I can't remember what the thing is, but that, and it would be like, elbows up, because the only reason your elbows up are to cover your eyes or your ears to hypocrisy, arrogance, corruption.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on. Willful blindness.
Yeah, exactly. That's why the elbows are up.
Yeah.
Anyways, Mike Myers, just to note, he was in that elbows up commercial. He was named in the P. Diddy court case that's going on as one of the people having some involvement there. So that's a really good look for the Liberal government.
Oh man. Okay. Well.
Anyways, we have a new government, and we have a new prime minister, and he's got some plans. So I don't know. We dig into what we're looking at, and I have some conclusions after, maybe.
Can
so
we talk
immigration.
About everything other than housing first?
Okay, yes, because that's what it comes down to. So immigration, which will have an effect on housing, right? They're kind of just sticking with the plan, right? Not a huge change. There were some changes announced last year. They're like, okay, we're going to start reducing temporary residents to 5% of the population, down from.
Is that a Trudeau announcement? Because that's a yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That was by 2027. They wanted to get back to that threshold.
So that was part of the Mark Miller was like, okay, we got a real problem. We got to do something, right?
I don't know who created the real problem, but
well, again, this is when the Liberals were like so low in the polls, they were approaching NDP numbers. By the way, I just want to predict that we're going to have a bunch of floor crossers from the NDP.
Yeah.
And we will see a Liberal majority. Anyways. They want to reduce the temporary residents to 5% of the population, which is a tall order. So right now there's about 3 million temporary residents in Canada, including 1 million students. Right. So, I mean, if all the students stop coming, which they have been in droves, maybe they'll just hit that number naturally and they don't have to do anything. And maybe that's the plan. I don't know. Because, 1 million people leave. That'll probably get us under 5% of the population. But, I mean, the targets for permanent residents are 395,000 for 2025. And then they drop a bit, 380,000 2026, 365,000 2027.
So if all these students aren't coming, like, is that just because they realize they could study on YouTube and they don't need to come here? Or
no, it's because it's so bleeding expensive here, right? And they have trouble finding jobs, and the ones they do are all scams, right? It's the employers scamming them, like saying, you got to pay me back. We'll pay you $20 an hour, but you got to give me $10 an hour back, or whatever various scams are out there. So, I mean, you've seen like a ton of Indian students giving interviews and just being like, I got to go back. Like, there's nothing for me here. There's no jobs. There's no opportunities. And I'm like living in a tent because I can't afford housing. So, We'll see what happens. But I mean, yeah, those are temporary. We're still talking about permanent residents, and we've always beat that number. Whatever the target for permanent residents was, we always went over. So it's not like that's a hard cap. That's a target. So still, I mean, it's still a healthy or unhealthy, depending on how you look at it, amount of immigration, which when we get to unemployment stats will be very interesting. Bank of Canada, TIFF had a speech and they released a report, which are pretty similar in substance, I think, right? Talking about turbulence. Like, yep, no kidding. and their focus on inflation, right? So on one hand, you have a weaker economy that's causing inflation to drop, but then the higher costs, which are going to increase inflation. So they are monitoring the situation and with the goal that any inflation is temporary. They didn't say transitory this time.
Right. As people catch on to that word.
They learned from that one, but it's kind of the same thing. Like, well, we just hope it's transitory.
Yeah. What I got from the Financial Stability Report 2025, I can't tell you when this came out, but I'm assuming it's recent because they mention April in here. But, a lot hinges on this U.S. relationship and the trade wars and all this, right? So they make a few comments like, hey, we're resilient. Hey, it's going to be kind of volatile and hard to predict. And hey, the bulk of all of this is riding on what happens with the U.S. So do you think that should be a priority for our government to figure out?
Maybe.
More
it
important
is for the Bank of Canada. It's almost like they're telling the government, right? Without telling them, like, guys, focus on this.
Yeah. Not the UK.
Yeah. I mean, Carney finally met with Trump. And it's like, yeah, your first thing you did when you became prime minister was fly to the UK and to wherever else, and got nowhere with them in terms of, trade agreements or any kind of agreements. I met with Macron in France. You should have been focusing on the States. Like, I don't know.
We're already criticizing him, and it's how many weeks in? Like a week and a half?
Well, but this was before he was even, or before he was formally elected, right? He shouldn't have really been engaging in diplomacy, but if he was, it should have been with the States.
Well,
and certainly all
Danielle
the
Smith
teams
was taking care of everything, right?
Yeah, you would. Yeah, unfortunately. No, I mean, Melanie Joly, I don't know who's the new trade minister, but it was Melanie Joly, and they're all just slagging Trump in the U.S., so we're going to have to pay the price for that, unfortunately. Whatever you think of Trump, he's not going to forget what they were saying, like what we said and what we did, and that's why... we still got tariffs.
Hear him talking about Chrystia Freeland, like he doesn't, or he kind of he forgets her name, but he remembers that she wasn't a good woman.
Oh yeah, he took a chunk out of her, man. But again, you say whatever you want about Trump, but that's the reality that we're dealing with. You have to deal with whoever's there. U.S. is our biggest trading partner, will continue to be, because we haven't made any. We could have in the past 10 years diversified and been sending natural gas all over the place. And there's a good interview I heard with Doomberg. He's that's his Twitter name. I can't remember I think it was the Looney Hour. Doomberg was on there.
Okay.
And just really good about energy prices. He's American, but knowledgeable about Canadian stuff and what we need to do to diversify. I recommend that interview. But just pointing out, like, we have so much stranded natural gas, and we could be selling that right now if we had made trade agreements to Japan, to other Asian nations, to Europe. Like, could have been a totally different situation. But we're not. So it'll be interesting to see if Carney continues with the whole
climate stuff or
climate stuff. I don't know.
What do you suspect? Do you think he'll because there's the financial side of it is, if you can get energy going, well, that's good for the country. But I guess if you're in on the climate stuff and you can benefit behind closed doors from any of these green contracts or whatever.
Yeah, so there's a few layers here. Like, I don't know. Mark, he had that book out, which I don't know if you still have. We talked about that before, Values, right? Where he's just
I keep it in a special place.
Is that a place called the landfill? Well, like, why does somebody write a book, right? Maybe you really have something to say.
I'm going to ask the author on the podcast. Why did you write a book, Mark?
To get our name out there, essentially, to provide, like, we wanted to share what we had learned and stuff, and that's great, and that's a great avenue to do so, to help others, but also just like you establish yourself as a bit of an expert in the field. If you're higher in the echelons of power, it's almost like it's an addition to your CV, to your resume, and just like put some stuff out there about you, saying like you're almost advertising yourself for something.
Yeah.
What is that, right? If you're a central banker, maybe it's for office. I think Carney's had his eye on political office for some time. So I think that book was part of that. So does he actually believe in all the green stuff, or was this opportunistic? And I think he's opportunistic. I don't think he's a wholehearted climate warrior. I think he's just opportunity. Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that he did with Brookfield, I think, kind of bears that out. And it's interesting that Brookfield has a lot to gain, whether it's modular housing or climate stuff. And he, that's where I think the bulk of his wealth is, with Brookfield Asset Management. And just so interesting that every time there's a new policy that comes out, like, oh yeah, by the way, Brookfield bought, a modular home manufacturer last year, or bought this company or that company. So
yeah, to go back to Trump, like every time he talks, it's almost like, yeah, the economy's going to the moon, like US is going to take off like never seen before. And do you think that's true, or is that like just a matter of time, or is that going to happen at the expense of other countries, like Canada or whatever? Like, he's going to negotiate trade agreements that are favorable to the U.S. or whatever, and end up just railroading over everybody.
I think it's a lot of bluster, right? Like, you need to listen to
like, how many times can you say that before the American people are like, yeah, I don't know if I see that around here. Like, maybe we're in a recession. Or if they're like, yeah, we're gonna go buy some stuff because he says it's good out here, let's go and be better consumers. Like,
yeah, it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's just it's bluster, it's bombast, showmanship, and it's all, and like, that's what so many people don't get, is that like, he's making deals all the time. He's always negotiating, even when you think he's not. Yeah. So when he says X, that doesn't mean X is true. When he says, like, we're going to have tariffs up here, well, really, he's aiming down here, because he knows you're going to start here, and like, it's getting to the middle. So all this talk of the economy going to the moon and stuff, I mean, he would love that, but like, listen to his team and the people making policy and doing stuff, right? Like Besant. Yeah. The Treasury Secretary. They've laid out. We talked about this a couple episodes ago, the Mar-a-Lago plan and what they want to do. And like, debt is a huge problem for them. So they got to do something about the debt. They have to recalibrate things. And that's everything that he's doing, is about recalibrating the debt and then repositioning the U.S. economy to still be the strongest in the world. And that's going to mean some pain. They've said that. They're not worried about the stock market. They're not worried about other indicators like bonds. Yeah, they'll be worried about those. But there's going to be some short-term pain. So, keep up the cheerleading while you go through it, and try to make other countries pay that pain.
Yeah, as much as possible.
As much as possible. And I think that's what the whole tariff thing is about too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it's about punishing China, I think, without
directly.
I mean, like, without saying we're just going to start a war on China. Like, everybody's getting tariffs, and then, look, how did it end up? Well, mostly it's China, and there's big tariffs on them.
Yeah.
So, it's a little bit of I think, recalibrating, about the debt, and just like jockeying for position with China threatening the U.S.
Well, because
hegemony.
what's the steps here? Like tariffs on China means it's the incentive is to produce things locally in the States. But that takes a long time for that to play out. Like you tariff them, yes, but there's still like pipelines and manufacturing and that going on, and it takes time for, okay, now I want to build a factory in the US and hire US workers instead of Chinese.
Yeah, so for cheap goods, like whatever, but for things like autos and what, like I think he's trying to bring that back, because you've seen the erosion of America over the last 60 years, whatever, right? As manufacturing was outsourced. And so, some people say China's got the U.S. in a difficult situation because, if they stop exporting to the U.S., so the U.S., what are they going to do? They won't have any goods. But the inverse is also true, right? The U.S. is the biggest consumer in the world. And I think the U.S. can outlast China in a trade war. And I think China has much more to lose, right? They've been sending out cheap goods for a long time, but they got some problems in their own economy. Yeah. And if they have massive unemployment because their biggest customers are not buying because of the tariffs, never mind where does the manufacturing actually go. The manufacturing can go elsewhere. Yeah. I think it's about crippling China, right? You can go to Vietnam, Southeast Asia, and because they're not going to go back to making sneakers in the U.S. or sweatshirts or whatever, right? I don't think that'll ever happen. Yeah, it's going to go somewhere else, but I think it's just punish China and strengthen the U.S. at any cost. So, let's just look at that, guys, and then try to ride that trend. And if we can diversify, fine, but let's not upset our biggest trading partner.
So 2025 trade wars, 2026 real wars, or is that very pessimistic?
I don't think Trump wants to. I don't think he wants to. Get into an actual real war. That's always a solution to a bad economy, right? Yeah. Is another war. But everything that I've seen from him is that he actually doesn't really want that. Doesn't want to feed the military-industrial complex. But I mean, his power only goes so far too.
I've just been keeping an eye on the cryptocurrency or the Bitcoin space and what's going on in the States a little bit more than the politics. I don't know why. It's just interesting. But he's so open to this, and there seems to be more and more movement and more institutional adoption of Bitcoin. And I find that fascinating, where this is going. Still, I talk to people every day and they're like, I don't know what Bitcoin is. Are you still on that train? I don't know, you got to give that up, man. And I'm like, I don't know, man. The U.S. government is buying this stuff.
Well, Bank of Canada just made an announcement around cryptocurrencies as well, right? Nothing substantial, but they actually acknowledged that people are transacting in cryptocurrency. Yeah. And Bitcoin. I mean, they lump it all together, but we'll say crypto and Bitcoin. And, their attitude is more we need to have some sort of regulatory power over this, but at least they've acknowledged it as a thing. So they know it's not going away.
Yeah. It's just today, OCC confirms U.S. banks can custody Bitcoin for clients. It's announcements like that, right? They're like, oh, okay, well, the banks can hold Bitcoin for clients. Interesting. Do you think that's going to have any impact over the long run? I don't know. Maybe, right?
Well, it's normalizing Bitcoin as a thing, right? Either as a currency or, more as an asset, but as an actual.
But the way the U.S., the way Trump talks about it too, is just we want to be the first one. We want to be pioneering this space, innovating. We want to be able to benefit the most from it. And his actions are speaking he does. So I don't know. It's really interesting.
There's not a lot of downside for them, I don't think. No. And potentially a lot of upside if they are sort of first to grab hold of the Bitcoin craze. And I mean, there's so many companies in like publicly traded companies in the States that are dealing with it. Tether is, I think the biggest buyer
what
of
happened
U.S.
with
bonds.
Tether? Maybe we got to explain what Tether is for a brief second, but.
Okay. So yeah, USDT is the symbol. Tether, it's basically a stable coin. I don't know if we have time to get into all this, but it is a stable coin that is backed by the US dollar. So for every USDT that's out there, there is $1 of US Treasury, at least, that backs that up. And so there's a lot of interchangeability with Bitcoin. I'm probably butchering this, but they are also integral to to Bitcoin's stability and liquidity. And the point is they're not like other cryptocurrencies or other stable coins that may be a little bit dodgy. And people have said like, oh, I don't think they have all these bonds. They've been audited. I believe that they do have actually hold the US treasuries. And so yeah, that's I don't know. We could do another episode about stable coins. But they serve a big, important role in cryptocurrencies. And,
in an increasingly important place, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and then also in the real world, because they have so much U.S. government debt.
Yeah.
Right. They hold bonds and like a huge amount. So yeah, ignore it at your peril, I guess.
Yeah, it's such an interesting world we live in, man. It's people compare it to there's real estate and there's digital real estate, right? And like Bitcoin is digital real estate without all the headaches of tenants, property management. We just had a tub crack. Like, how does a tub crack? Like,
oh, really?
Just completely from the overflow valve down to the drain, just completely just split in half, and that's only like 2 years old.
Are they doing jumping jacks in there?
I don't know, but the whole tub drained out into the other room, and thankfully it's in the basement. But that's the sort of thing you avoid with digital real estate. I don't know. No.
I guess you wouldn't have the sweet learning curve that comes with it, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm always thinking about when I'm dealing with things like that. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So, what else we got on your list before we start diving down Bitcoin?
Okay. Standard of living in Canada has dropped. So The Economist, the magazine, has a, what do they call it? A Human Development Index.
Yeah.
And so we used to be like right around number one. We were number one for a while. We've dropped precipitously out of the top 10 to 16.
Human development happens in puberty, like a high rate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like standard of living kind of thing.
Right.
Right. So just standard of living in Canada has dropped. I mean, I think we knew that, but now you're seeing, external indicators of that. Employment is one I wanted to talk about a bit, right?
Okay.
It's a little, I don't know, it's a little bit worrying in addition to all the other stuff that's worrying. And we're at, 6.9% unemployment in Canada.
Yeah.
Which is, it's getting kind of high. Youth unemployment, 14%.
Isn't the way to fix unemployment by just making some of those people not intend to get a job? And then the unemployment. These are people who don't have a job, but who are actively looking for a job.
Who want a job.
Yeah.
So that's the other number. Sorry, I'm just moving stuff around on monitors here. The other number, our employment rate is now right around 60%. Right. So this is of people who are of working age,
right?
Are not working. So
40% of the population who is potentially could work is not working.
So let's say 18 to 65. But
shouldn't it
working.
be 50%? Because all the women are taking care of children. I don't know.
You're poking the hornet's nest there.
I don't know.
No. So the OECD. Organization of Economic, I don't know. It's like industrialized countries. OECD average is around 70%. Right. So yeah, you would take out of that, like, okay, some stay-at-home moms. I don't know what the number of that is, but that people who are disabled, that number seems to go up all the time. People who've just given up looking for employment, people in jail, for like, it's not such a big number here in the States. That would be a much bigger number, enough to actually affect things. But yeah, that's so average 70%. We're at 60%. Like, that's a big difference. Like, why are so many people? And I have some ideas about this, but
they don't give a reason why.
Related to immigration. I didn't dig into that far into it.
Like, could be that there's no jobs.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Which, okay, so before we jump to conclusions, a few more numbers. Year over year, public sector is up 105,000 jobs. So I think this is like March to March, 2024 to 2025. Okay, private sector is up 90,000 year over year, but dropping. Like, month over month, private was down 27,000 jobs.
But like, do you have a sense of public sector's up 105, private's down up 90, but dropping? But like, what would be a good ratio for this? Like, what percentage? What percentage of the jobs are usually public sector versus private sector? Right? Like,
I don't know what usually, but in Canada it's 21%. It's been as high as I've heard, depending how you measure it. I've heard up to 25%, but let's say 21% of the Canadian workforce is public sector. So 1 in 5 Canadians, or 1 in 4, depending on how you count the numbers, right? Which I think is like,
wow,
a huge number.
Yeah.
Like, go to the grocery store and like look at 4 people, 5 people. One of them works for not the federal government necessarily, but for some kind of government funded
that would
thing.
Include like nurse and teachers.
Nurses, firefighters, police, useless bureaucrats. Sorry if you're a bureaucrat.
I don't think we have any bureaucrats listening.
So the ratio there is 4 to 1, right? Private sector then is 79%. So
it would be more ratio. Like you go to the grocery store, you see 10 people, 4 of them don't work at all, even though they could.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? And then of the rest, 1 in 5 or whatever.
Yeah, so 1 or 2 of them works for public sector, and the rest are...
So 4 work in the private sector, 2 work for the government, and 4 don't work at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
So that's 4 out of 10 people, 4.5, are like paying the way.
Yeah.
And like, not even, right? A lot of the whatever else is paying people's wages is just
we have room to grow.
Money.
We have room, like, if those 4 people start working, we could double our productivity.
Yeah, you know what? Like, you joke about it, but that's something government should be looking at. Like, how do we increase productivity? How do you want to increase GDP? Get people working.
Yeah, they're not looking at it because they're not listening to Mark talk about it.
I keep telling people that, and people keep not listening. But yeah, so 105,000 jobs year over year increase was private sector. So you would expect in a healthy economy, then you would have 4 times as many. Sorry, that was public sector. You'd expect 4 times as many private sector jobs. So like 420,000. But no, we see a 90,000 increase in jobs. And that's like, that kind of went up and it's going down like very fast, to the point where I think we're just going to see pretty soon year over year private sector losses. So yeah, the numbers come out, the employment numbers, and people are like, oh, look, jobs are up. And it's like, well, yeah, because the government's hiring.
What's your word on the street from that? Like, just your sense from people, and like anecdotally when you're talking to people, are they doing well? Are they stressed out? Are they losing their job? Like, do you see that? Because I don't know.
Yeah, people are stressed. I've seen some layoffs, and like in the steel industry. Yeah. For one, right? Like, they're laying off, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
In auto industry, I don't know people there, but
manufacturing. Like, I talked to a guy. He's down on his hours. Like he's cut back to 80% of his hours.
Yeah, anybody that does significant business in the States, not anybody, but like a lot, is it's either precarious or there's layoffs. And that's, so you've seen unemployment go up quite a bit, like 0.2%, which is a pretty big jump over the last month. So it's, it's...
So this is a recession though, or a depression?
I think we've been in recession for a while, but, maybe not technically according to how you measure it, because that would be 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. But, you look at the latest numbers, GDP is modestly up in all areas in Canada. But I mean, this is why, because the public sector employment is going up, right? It's universal basic income by government employment. And I expect to see a lot more of that because what else is the government going to do? Let everybody be unemployed? They could. I don't think they will. I think you're going to see a lot more. Well, they've telegraphed more spending, right? $200 billion deficit over the next 4 years. So $50 billion a year. And if that's what they're forecasting, again, it's a target, right?
I just see the book behind you, Broken Money. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to blow past that. And isn't it so funny that Chrystia Freeland resigned, ostensibly because she was upset with Trudeau pushing past the guardrails of a $35 billion deficit or whatever. And then, Carney's posting, he's like, no, we'll do $50 billion a year in deficits. And she's like, yeah, Team Carney.
Yeah.
So,
well, why would you vote for something that, if you have the opportunity to vote for free stuff, why would you vote to endure hardship and, no programs, that sort of thing, right? This whole political system, this whole debt-based system, every platform that comes out is more spending because it has to be, because how else do you get elected? And everybody, you think, oh, you know what, I'll pay my taxes, I'll go to work, I'll support the system and whatever. And then, oh, you could get this program if you are eligible, blah, blah, blah. Well, I guess I'm getting that program, right? Everybody takes advantage of the programs when you can. And then if I'm in that category, why don't I vote for more free programs? Because I don't know where they get the money from, but it's great. Just keep it coming, right? If you benefit from it, why are you going to not vote for it? And
we're so accustomed to it.
Yeah.
Right. Especially we'll yell at boomers for a while. I've really rented on millennials, but I mean boomers too, right? Who essentially are the ones who elected the Liberal government. Because they have a way of life, and they have, not all of them, but a lot of them have assets, and they don't want to see that threatened. I was getting a prescription the other day, and there's a senior guy next to me, and he was complaining that one of his wife's prescriptions wasn't covered by the government, and muttering about how hard done by he was and how they're doing him wrong. And I'm just like,
do you own
they shouldn't be paying for any of it. Why should the government be paying for any of your prescriptions? How does that? But we're just that's hardwired into us, right? The government should cover that. Government should cover that.
Yeah, well, he's probably like, Mark, look, I followed the food guide my whole life. I Rice Krispies for breakfast. I had crickets for dinner.
Oh man, you're gonna have crickets for dinner. So,
all right, what else we got here? The housing
and there's just unemployment numbers not looking good.
No.
It's turbulent times. Housing sales, housing starts, housing planning. You should probably talk. Oh, you said you want to talk about everything else except for housing. So
no, you can talk about housing. That's fine.
Well, let's just talk about. Let's talk about housing. So the Liberals announced a plan of 500,000 new homes per year.
Canada's most ambitious housing plan since the Second World War, just in time for the Third World War. Maybe that was uncalled for.
Oh man, I don't think we're gonna have Third World War. For what it's worth.
We've been reading Scout. You know the book Scout?
Yeah. Sniff
the
the
dogs.
Holt.
Yeah. To our sons in the evening, and we don't want a war.
No.
They keep saying that's what they want to pray for after we read Scout. It's like, I don't really want to be in a war. Oh, well, that's good. Let's pray about that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, a war somewhere else, sure, but not here.
Yeah.
War in Ukraine or whatever, which, yeah, that just baffles me. Like, just end the war. Anyways, so what was the most we've ever built in Canada? I think 261,000 or something new homes of all flavors and kinds. And
I want to know how many
70s.
of those homes are still standing today, or if they're all still standing. Or
I don't know. I mean, the small ones are probably have been bulldozed, and bigger ones are in place. But anyways, very ambitious plan. They haven't really announced much on it that I could find since the election. So maybe that's still the plan. Interesting that a lot of it seemed to be geared towards modular homes, which, again, Brookfield Asset Management bought a modular home production company last year. Huh. Coincidence?
Yeah, and when you say modular, you mean like you can buy a bathroom and then you can add a kitchen and you can add a bedroom? Or
no, like pre-built homes, sort of factory built. That you just maybe like IKEA, right? It's a flat pack. You right, you roll it out to the job site, like unfold it, screw the walls together. Hey, I heard, by the way, speaking of world events, that the head of IKEA just got elected as Sweden's new prime minister. Did you hear that?
No.
So the first thing he has to do is assemble his cabinet.
I'm going to ship him a little mini Allen key.
Yeah, that's his advisor of housing policy, Alan Key.
Alan.
Anyways, so focus on purpose-built rentals for the Liberal plan, right? They didn't give a lot of details, but you could kind of, looking around the edges and at it, you could see it was really aimed at purpose-built rentals, not necessarily homes that people can buy.
Yeah.
And,
sustainably certified wood, recycled content, and low emission materials.
Stop it.
Certified wood. That means wood that's gone through a bureaucratic process.
Yeah, it's got a stamp.
Yeah.
You know where I would like to see lower emissions? Parliament. I don't think we're going to see that.
They say we will eliminate duplicative inspections and streamline regulations for prefabricated housing, including modular. So that's just admitting that they already do double the inspections they should?
Is it? I think it's playing on a thing where people are like, there's too much red tape, and they're like, yeah, we're going to eliminate red tape on these things that we don't really have red tape on because nobody's building them. But we're going to, make it very easy to get modular homes built. How about eliminate red tape on everything?
And we'll do that after we
instead of modular homes, right?
So one thing that caught my eye was MERB. Unless you had something else to say.
No, I'll.
Well, MERB. So
take a breather.
We will reintroduce. So this is interesting. So we will reintroduce a tax incentive, which, when originally introduced in the 1970s, spurred tens of thousands of rental housing across the country, known as the multiple unit rental billing (MERB) cost allowance. This policy helped produce nearly 200,000 units in 7 years between 1974 and 81. So
200,000, but they want to do 500,000 a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is 200,000 in 7 years. Yeah. So, but that was this policy. Like, you say this policy, you sign the document, and you get 200,000 units in 7 years. Units, not houses, units. Right? Like dwelling units. Yeah. So this is like a multi-unit rental product, right? So you're not thinking like single family homes or like even duplex kind of thing. This is like buildings. And the idea is that it was a tax incentive which worked back in the 1970s where, a high income earner, right? So somebody who's doctor, lawyer, that sort of thing, they could use
government employee. I'll just put that out there.
We can check that out there. They could basically invest in real estate and get a tax benefit that applied not just to their real estate, but to their other income, right? So if you're a high income earner, you pay a lot of taxes, but your losses or whatever depreciation you have in your real estate portfolio could actually apply against your income and bring your income down. So this is a really attractive way for high income earners in Canada to invest in real estate, and then specifically create these rental units, which are in demand. So they're talking about bringing this back, and it'd be interesting to see, is it going to be the same policy? We don't know. Is it going to be more like heavily weighted incentives or what? But like, what's the outcome of this in the long run if this sort of thing comes back in? Like, it's going to benefit high income earners, right? They're going to invest in more assets and make more income, and it's going to produce more tenants. It's not going to necessarily benefit, I don't think, the middle class or that segment of the market where there's the single family homes and the homeowners.
Well, middle class will not be homeowners soon.
Yeah.
Right? No, I think middle class is going to be defined by income, not assets. And that just means you can rent a nicer place.
Yeah.
That's what I think. So,
oh man.
So you raised an interesting point earlier off air, that this is going to possibly distort pricing, right? Of these assets.
Yeah,
like, why is that?
The reason there is that these buyers, like the investors here, would not be sensitive to the price because they're not buying it strictly for, the merits of the investment. It's cash flow, whatever the case may be. They're buying it because it's actually really kind of a strategic tax play, right? And that's kind of like maybe the primary or like even one of the factors of whether they're buying it. So like they don't really care about the price if it's a couple $100,000 up or down or whatever. If I'm in a situation where if I buy this asset, I can save all this tax. Well, like whatever, I don't care what the price is.
Well,
right?
yeah. So even if you come out the same, in terms of income or whatever,
well, now you have an
asset.
Yeah. So even if it's detrimental to you in the long run, it might even be a positive. It's interesting to see that this is on their list, and it was something we'll have to stay on top of if they do come out with this in the budget or whatever.
So I have mixed feelings about it, right? Because on one hand,
you're not a high income earner and you don't have to
yeah, that's my main objection, is my income. No, is that like we've been screaming about this, I think, for a while, right? If you want to stimulate housing demand, like let the private sector do it. Government, don't try to build houses. You're gonna distort prices even more and screw things up even more, right? So here's a good example of where you can stimulate private sector investment in housing, which we need, right? We saying like we have a housing shortage and we need more housing, so here's a way to do it. But on the flip side, like we've also talked about Canadian economy's reliance on real estate and the lack of research and development. Well, so this is going to take money from high income earners, like you said, that could maybe have gone to something else, right? I don't know, expanding the dental practice maybe, or law practice, or I mean, maybe I shouldn't use lawyers as an example. I'm just trying to think of productive uses of money. I don't think there's any lawyers that listen, so it's okay.
There isn't now.
Yeah, there was one.
They're all busy suing us, Mark.
Yeah. Defamation of character. But you're taking money that could have been used for other stuff and you're smashing it back into real estate. We're like, we got to reduce our reliance on real estate. And what are we doing? We're like, nope, let's double down and whatever. Cause like the middle class can't afford to invest in anything because their buying power is severely reduced. So the people who are higher income earners, and maybe you could argue they're middle class, but the possible capital that's out there, we're just redirecting now towards real estate. Yeah. And so, short term,
further pigeonholing our economy.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll get people working and stuff, but oh man, what like long term, not good. So yeah, on one hand, sure, let's get more housing built and let's let the private sector do it. But how about some other incentives for business formation, right? And research and development and other stuff other than real estate. That would be, because, you know, in the long term, that's what we need. Yeah, we need more houses, but we need a lot of other stuff in Canada.
Yeah,
too.
you just think about it like this, right? Imagine if 100% of Canada's GDP is housing. Well, you know, everybody gets up in the morning to go to work to build a house so that we can all go home at night and sleep in the house and get up tomorrow. But like, it just, where does this end? Is this a bit, I thought that when I was a kid growing up, it's like, Dad, that guy's a bricklayer. And like, he lives in a house. So he probably goes home, he goes, he lays the bricks like for someone else's house. And like, once that guy, like, is that guy going to be a bricklayer too? Like, you just didn't have a concept of like, there's other things in the economy that would work, but like, is everyone building houses all the time? And like, what's the point of this? Like, why are we doing this?
Well, I mean, so some of that will relate to immigration, right? And unemployment. So we're tying it all together now, Brent. It's like a Seinfeld episode. It all comes together in the end.
Yeah.
Right. When you have high unemployment, why do we have immigration at all? It's not because we're not prioritizing high skilled, like, yeah, there's some of them coming, but not 395,000 high skilled, high net worth individuals. They don't want to come to Canada anymore. They're not coming. We're importing low wage earners. We're importing people with no skills.
Toronto Maple Leaf fans or something.
Yeah, we don't need any more of those. No, but why are we doing that when unemployment is going up? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Right? If you need, actually, and we're told like, oh, we need all these workers for like, no, we don't, because unemployment's up. Youth unemployment is ridiculous, right?
14.
Toronto especially is, it's something like 25% or something, for like, if you're between 18 and 25, like, that's a good way to have social unrest, is to have all your, like, a lot of your young men not working.
Yeah.
So, you know, all we're doing, like, if we're importing tons of people who don't have jobs and the cost of living is really high, like, yeah, they're probably not going to be happy.
Yeah. And they had a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah. So not a good idea. And so what does that do to housing? I mean, we are seeing housing, rents drop. We were talking about that earlier too, right?
Yeah.
A little bit more difficult to get in what should be a busy season. Not seeing a lot of demand, and prices are coming down for units.
Yeah, for sure. Like, definitely experiencing the same thing. And yeah, we have good quality units, and in general, like, yeah, about the same price or a little bit lower. But that's also, like, you know, the units that rented at the peak were also crazy, right? Like, the rents have spiked over the last 5 years dramatically. So to come back down, yeah, it's softening, it's coming back down, but it's also still, like, you know, compared to 2017, 18, 19, that trend, like, we're up, we're, you know, on a regular we're on a regular trend there. But yeah, when things are crazy 2 years ago,
people will say like, oh no, affordability's coming back, see, rents are dropping. Like, no, it's still crazy expensive to rent. Yeah, it's still not in line with salaries. So it's like the biggest drop in real estate prices in the last 30 years or whatever, but it's also from the biggest spike up. 3 years ago, wow, we're down. You got to take the facts and cut them in half. 10 and then you have two headlines. Like, it's the biggest drop in real estate prices after the biggest spike in real estate prices. And then you just cut them in half and you post them both, and you got two headlines. You know, the biggest spike in real estate, the biggest drop. And I'm like, let's just read all the news and put it all together and make some sense. Well, let's put something clickbaity like that as the title for this episode. Yeah. Mark is smart, or Brent is dumb. There we go. Put them both up there. All right. So housing, it'll be interesting to see what they actually do. Like, I don't believe they're not going to build 500,000 a year, but it'll be interesting to see what they actually, what the plan is. And MERB, if that happens, cool. I mean, when you look at all the apartment buildings and stuff, even like the walk-ups, like the 3-4 story walk-ups and stuff, like they're all built in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
So we could probably do with some more stuff that's like not brown and ugly.
Yeah.
No
We'll talk about that in a different episode. I got some thoughts on that.
Okay. All right. Okay, what else? We got Alberta separatism is another one that's been in the news lately, right?
They're not gone yet?
No, still not. Still not.
Yeah, that's a surprise.
They're working on the referendum first.
Okay.
And so I don't see it happening. I know a lot of Albertans are upset, and like rightfully so, for sure. And there's some people who would leave in a heartbeat. But, on the whole, I don't think I think this is just a power play. And especially for someone like Danielle Smith, I don't think she wants to see Alberta separate. It's just about leverage, right? Saying like, we're going to leave just saying we're going to leave and then see what Canada has to offer, right? And there should be some equalization, I think. When you look at what Alberta contributes, and people will be like, oh, no, Ontario's the economic powerhouse and of in terms of GDP, and then Quebec is right up there as well. It's like, well, if that's true, why is Quebec getting so many transfer payments if they're such a powerhouse? Like they're not. They're always a perennial have-not province, and even Ontario is, right? Alberta contributes tons and tons of money to Confederation, so like just knock it off. So. What are they hoping to get? I don't know. Maybe more representation in Parliament. That would make sense, especially if you compare it to like Eastern Canada, right? The per capita seats, Senate representation, and like maybe some pipelines. Which is why I think if Carney was smart, and I think he is, he would let this brew a little bit, and then use that to eventually build some pipelines. To be like, look. Guys, like you know me, I'm green. I got this book, Values, right?
Yeah.
My green credentials.
Yeah,
But in order to keep Alberta in Canada, I think we're gonna have to build some pipelines. That wouldn't be a bad move, I think.
Yeah.
So
is the dog on your end?
My door alarm's going off. It's my alarm system.
That must mean it's time to wrap this show up.
Yeah, it's just about, when the dogs are barking, then, is that a saying? I don't know. Anyway, so we'll see what happens with that. This is a longer term thing, but I'm hoping that the upshot of all of it is that we get some big, beautiful, the best pipelines built across Canada, and that we can have refineries in Canada, and we can ship natural gas all over the world.
So there'll be like natural gas in one and dollars coming back in the other one.
Yeah. And you know what? If you're like a climate warrior, let's ship as much natural gas as we can to China as possible so they stop building coal plants.
Yeah.
Right?
We can paint the pipes green too. Like that's...
No, but natural gas is much more friendly burning, like for carbon emissions.
Yeah, compared to coal.
So let's get that out there. We have tons. Like, come on, guys. It's not... Anyways. Carney finally visited Trump. And we didn't see any sort of elbows up. We saw like a limp-wristed fist in the air or something. Like, oh, man. He's not a man's man, that's for sure. But I don't think he did that badly. As far as the visit goes, like what else are you going to do with Trump?
Both sides are just going to pick this apart, right? Like, hey, look at this 2 seconds where he twitched this, and like that means confidence. No, that means just total arrogance, or like, like
that's all theater, right? The real stuff happens behind closed doors. So I don't know. What are your takeaways, Brent? Everything's terrible. Go hide under a rock.
In regards to Carney and Trump.
Everything we've talked about, like, if you're a real estate investor,
hide under a rock, make sure it's a big rock.
A big rock, and try to rent out some room under the rock as well.
No, keep producing things and keep preparing yourself for opportunities, because there are opportunities. This is the thing, right? When everyone else is afraid, that's when you got to be greedy. I don't know. even though I don't think greed is a good thing. But that's the saying, right?
No, you had a chart before. I think that was, what was that, Nick Carrazza?
Yeah.
Had that, the investing versus speculating.
Yeah, I'm not going to necessarily share that because it puts me in a weird little... Anyways. Well,
I mean, the point is, like, when prices are going up,
everybody, it's easy, right?
It's easy because you're speculating on the price of the home going up. When prices are flat or going down, well, that's tough.
Yeah. So if you look back over the last 50 years, like there have been periods of more dramatic price movement upwards, which is easy for everyone to speculate, right? You could buy like these, new construction condos or whatever it is, and you don't even have to really do anything. You just put the deposit in and wait, and 5 years later that was smart, right? Like so in those markets, it attracts a different person and whatever. But then in this market that we're in now, and we kind of foresee for this decade, like could be a lot more difficult and challenging. So we've seen periods like that over the last 50 years too, right? In the 90s when prices didn't climb like they did in the last 10 years. Well, what did you have to do? Well, you had to work. We rag on productivity, right? Like in Canada and business growth, but even in real estate too, like you have to actually do stuff to make the house better, or, go find the right opportunity and go to work, make your mortgage payments, or get your tenants in there, manage them well, get the rent payments down. And a lot of the times too, like there's a big talk about the missing middle housing. Well, it's creating more dwelling units, right? And that's productive. It's work. It takes effort. It takes money. It takes time. It takes commitment. It's hard, right? But in 10 years, right, when you look at a long-term investment, does that make sense? Well, it does. And then you position yourself so that when, these more speculative periods come, well, now you can benefit from that. But you can't expect that necessarily, right? So I think that would be one takeaway is, it's going to be tough. My saying to my wife is always, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I'm like, well, on an eternal perspective, I guess that's true. But yeah, in this situation, it probably applies, right? You're gonna experience some real difficulty, and maybe if you're in manufacturing or whatever in these jobs, we haven't even talked about AI taking jobs or whatever from whatever, and like these things might mean you have less to work with, but I think there's still opportunities out there, and it's just going to require more work.
Yeah, because everybody's pretty down, pretty gloomy, and a lot of comparisons to the 90s, right? When prices ground down for like 7-8 years or whatever it was. So yeah, maybe if you had bought then, everybody would have told, like, bought a house as an investment, like a rental property, people would have told you like, oh, that's dumb, right? Well, how about now when the price is up like how many 100%, right? So it's just, it's a matter of perspective. And I think there's a difference between now and the 90s as well, is that government has much more of a debt burden, right? It's huge. So they have to spend money just to be able to make debt payments. They have to print money. It has to introduce more money to the economy. And what does that mean, right? Inflation, asset price inflation. Like Carney has promised huge deficits.
Yeah.
And we know they're going to overshoot those. So what is that? That's more money in the economy, more government hiring, more government spending. And so that's something that's been on my mind as well. Like, how do I prepare for the future? Like, look at something where there's going to be a lot of government spending, and kind of
get yourself a contract.
get a job that is oriented towards that, or if you're self-employed, work towards contracts that or work towards serving that industry, because that's, I think, in a year, like, that's the only businesses that are going to be spending money is either businesses that make money off the government or actual government spending, right? Whether that's buildings or whatever it is. So
that's a good takeaway.
Yeah, I think so. And just like, save your money, right? Now's not the time to be spending money on frivolous stuff, right? If you can afford an investment like a property, I think probably a good time to get it. Prices may come down still a little bit, but that's the difference between that speculative mindset versus the investment mindset, right? Like, oh, I bought last year and the price has gone down like 3-4%. Like, that was what a mistake. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. The trick is there, like, you got to be set up and ready to go too, right? And real estate is one of these things. Like, once you own a property, like it takes a long time to sell it, and it's not like you can click a button and the thing's gone, right? You liquidate. And it's the same thing when you're spooling up to buy, right? Like, unless you've done it 100 times and you've got all your ducks in a row and you just routine. Well, like, if you haven't bought a property for a while, if you've never done it before, like, you got to get ready to go and get figured out. Like, what's your strategy? Why? Like, what's your long-term perspective here? Like, figure this out, and then. When you're ready to make a move and like the opportunity, that's where they meet, right? You're prepared to go and the opportunity comes. And I think right now, like you said, for people who have access to capital, that's unique, right? Like credits, it's hard to get or whatever. Then if you have access to it, then you're in a unique position, right? You can negotiate better. Talk about Trump negotiating. Well, you come in and offer on a property. Like, look, I'm going rock bottom here, but I have cash, right? So and it's probably a case of the rich get richer. But like, if you're not ready, and then opportunity comes up and you got to try and get all your ducks in a row and get ready to go. Like, well, there goes the space to someone else, right? So
yeah, I mean, if you're just talking about real estate investing, like we know there's other stuff in the world, like Bitcoin. But if just specifically looking at real estate investing, if this all happens, the MERB program and government spending and everything, right? It's going to be a lot of purpose-built rentals, which is like, big rectangles in the sky kind of thing, or even smaller rectangles, but not single family home.
So like, what can you do as just an average guy investing or looking at real estate? You're not going to be buying a permanent building. Well, what can you do, Mark?
Well, that's why I'm saying I think there's going to be like opportunity for, in the rental market anyways, for people with like a unit with a yard, like with a little bit of green space, right? So single family homes that are being, you convert to duplex, triplex, whatever. ADUs we've talked about to death. Because again, there's no single family homes, very few single family homes being built. And then the next couple of years, there will be zero. So you'll see purpose-built rentals, but not like a nice spot for a family. So if you have some of those, like they're going to be like gold, I think, for in terms of rentals. Yeah. So a little bit tough right now with rents dropping, but over the long term, I think they'll be good. Okay. Anything else there?
No, that's great, Mark. I can't think of anything else.
Okay, I can think of a lot of things. But
oh, boy.
We should wrap it up there. So, thanks for listening, folks. And until next time,
steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
If you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To learn more about the show, head on over to twostewards.ca and explore our free resources. To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.
Nailed it.